They call him one of the greatest boxers of the modern era. To some, he's the undisputed champion. To others, he's a symbol of Ukraine. But very few people know that Oleksandr Usyk's career could have ended before it ever began. If he had made a different decision at one crucial moment, the world would have never heard his famous words, "I'm very few." There would have been no historic victories, no sold-out arenas, and no fights that became part of boxing history. Today, we're going to tell the story that's usually left untold, and it's the story that explains why Oleksandr Usyk is almost impossible to break. When you look at Oleksandr Usyk today, it seems as if he was born to box. An undisputed world champion in 2 weight divisions, an Olympic gold medalist, the holder of countless records, and a man who has proven time and time again that nothing is impossible. But the truth is completely different. As a child, Usyk didn't even dream of becoming a boxer. He was born on January 17, 1987, in Simferopol. His family lived a modest life. His father served in the military, while his mother worked in construction. Money was often tight, but his parents did everything they could to make sure their children never felt deprived. Oleksandr has often said that his childhood taught him the most important lesson of all. If you want to achieve something, no one is going to do it for you. What's even more surprising is that his first true passion wasn't boxing at all, it was football. Usyk was so talented that his coaches believed he had the potential to become a professional player. He trained at a youth academy, dreamed of a football career, and spent nearly all of his free time with a ball at his feet. Then, one day, everything changed. His family simply could no longer afford the training fees. For many children, that would have been the end of a dream. For Usyk, it was only the beginning of another one. At the age of 15, he walked into a boxing gym for the very first time. By elite sports standards, that was incredibly late. Most future champions begin at 6, 7, or 8 years old. By the time they're 15, they've already completed hundreds of training sessions. Usyk had none of that. He entered a gym where almost everyone was far more experienced. The first training sessions were tough. He got hit, he lost, he made mistakes. Sometimes he even questioned whether he'd made the right choice. But there was one quality that set him apart from everyone else. He never ran from adversity. If he lost, he stayed after practice. If something didn't work, he repeated it dozens of times. His first coach quickly realized he was looking at a young man willing to outwork everyone. And little by little, that determination began to pay off. While the other kids rushed home after training, Usyk stayed in the gym. He refined his footwork, he practiced his movement, he learned how to think inside the ring. That was when the style that would one day amaze the world first began to take shape. Effortless movement, constant motion, incredible endurance, and a calm, calculating mind. Back then, no one could have imagined that this skinny teenager would one day become a nightmare for the strongest boxers on the planet. Years of grueling training still lay ahead. Dozens of victories, and just as many painful defeats. Yes, defeats. Because there's another fact many people don't know. Early in his career, Usyk lost far more often than most fans realize today. Every loss hurt, but he looked at failure differently. To him, losing was never a reason to give up. It was an opportunity to become stronger. Eventually, that mindset became his greatest weapon. While others feared defeat, Usyk feared only one thing, not becoming the best version of himself. That's why, just a few years later, people began talking about him as one of the most gifted Ukrainian boxers of his generation. But his greatest challenge was still ahead. The Olympic Games. The tournament that would either make him a legend or leave him as just another talented athlete. And at the time, no one knew that just before the biggest competition of his life, Usyk went through a moment that would have made many athletes walk away from the sport forever. Just before the biggest moment of his life, Usyk went through an experience that would have made many athletes quit the sport altogether. At the beginning of his journey, he wasn't the boxer everyone believed was destined to become a champion. Quite the opposite. Usyk suffered several defeats in major tournaments, and after every loss, he faced the same question. Did he have the strength to keep going? Many young athletes start looking for excuses after a few setbacks. Some blame the judges, others blame their coaches. Some simply walk away from the sport. Usyk did the exact opposite. The tournament that would either make him a legend or leave him as just another talented athlete. And at the time, no one knew that just before the biggest competition of his life, Usyk went through a moment that would have made many athletes walk away from the sport forever. Just before the biggest moment of his life, Usyk went through an experience that would have made many athletes quit the sport altogether. At the beginning of his journey, he wasn't the boxer everyone believed was destined to become a champion. Quite the opposite. Usyk suffered several defeats in major tournaments, and after every loss, he faced the same question. Did he have the strength to keep going? Many young athletes start looking for excuses after a few setbacks. Some blame the judges. Others blame their coaches. Some simply walk away from the sport. Usyk did the exact opposite. After every defeat, he watched the fight footage over and over again. He analyzed every punch he absorbed, every wrong step, every poor decision. To him, losing wasn't a source of shame. It was a lesson. That mindset gradually turned him into a dangerous opponent. With every passing year, he wasn't just becoming physically stronger, he was learning to think faster than the fighters standing across from him. His coaches recalled that Usyk could spend hours perfecting a single technique. If something wasn't working, he wouldn't leave the gym until he felt he had mastered it. It was during this time that he developed another quality millions of fans recognize today: composure. During a fight, it looks as though he's never in a hurry. But that's only an illusion. In reality, every movement he makes is the result of thousands of hours of training. In 2011, Usyk reached the final of the World Amateur Boxing Championships. It was a tremendous achievement, but he fell just short of winning gold. For many athletes, a silver medal would have been a reason to celebrate. For Usyk, it became motivation. He already had his eyes on one goal: the Olympic Games in London. That was where years of hard work would finally be put to the test. The competition at the Olympics was fierce. The world's best heavyweight boxers had all come for one prize: Olympic gold. But the Ukrainian wasn't intimidated. If anything, he welcomed the challenge. The stronger the opponent, the more determined he became. Throughout the Olympic tournament, Usyk displayed a style of boxing that impressed even the most experienced experts. He moved constantly, changed the pace without warning, and forced his opponents into making mistakes. When the final arrived, all of Ukraine was watching. The price of one mistake was enormous. But moments like these are where champions are made. When the final bell rang, there was no doubt. Oleksandr Usyk was an Olympic champion. For most people, that would have been the pinnacle of a career. He could have remained in amateur boxing, enjoyed the status of a national hero, and avoided risking everything. But once again, Usyk chose the harder path. He turned professional. Many experts had their doubts. Some argued that his style was too unconventional for the professional ranks. Others believed that without devastating knockout power, he would never become a world champion. At the time, it seemed there were more skeptics than believers. But they overlooked one thing. Usyk never built his career on other people's opinions. He trusted only one thing: hard work. And very soon, the boxing world would realize just how wrong they had been. And very soon, the boxing world would realize just how wrong it had been. Professional boxing is a completely different world. Talent alone isn't enough. Money, promoters, popularity, and the ability to handle immense psychological pressure all play a major role. Many outstanding amateur boxers entered the professional ranks with high expectations, only to fall short of becoming world champions. So when Usyk made his professional debut in 2013, people were cautiously optimistic. Yes, he was an Olympic gold medalist. Could he adapt to longer fights? Did he have enough power? Or would his unusual style become a weakness? The answers came quickly. Usyk began defeating one opponent after another. But what made him different was that he never chased easy fights. While many prospects built perfect records against weaker opponents, Usyk chose the toughest challenges available. In 2016, he defeated Krzysztof Głowacki in Poland to become the WBO Cruiserweight World Champion. Winning a world title in a champion's home country is one of the hardest things to do in boxing. But an even bigger test was coming. In 2018, Usyk entered the World Boxing Super Series, where only the best fighters competed. Fight after fight, he won on hostile territory in Latvia, Germany, and Russia, where the crowds cheered against him. He defeated Murat Gassiev in the final and became the undisputed cruiserweight champion. Still, critics said the same thing. He'll never do that at heavyweight. Heavyweight was ruled by giants who outweighed him by up to 20 kilograms. Then, in 2021, Usyk faced Anthony Joshua, the reigning heavyweight champion. Most experts expected Joshua to win. Instead, Usyk outboxed him over 12 rounds and became heavyweight champion of the world. A year later, he proved it wasn't luck by defeating Joshua again. But one final challenge remained. Tyson Fury, an undefeated champion. Bigger, heavier, more experienced. Once again, almost everyone picked Usyk to lose. Once again, they were wrong. Usyk defeated Fury to become the undisputed heavyweight champion, the first man in the 21st century to unify all the major heavyweight world titles. That's when everyone realized his real strength had never been his size or his punching power. It was discipline. While others searched for shortcuts, Usyk kept working. While others doubted him, he kept improving. And that's how a boy from Simferopol, who once had to give up football because his family couldn't afford it, became one of the greatest boxers of all time.